In Congress, there was a telling self-own this week. Republican Congressman Chip Roy, he took to the floor of Congress and asked out loud if his party had actually accomplished anything since assuming leadership. The silence was deafening.
Lots to talk about. 2-year anniversary of the bipartisan infrastructure law. The president spent a little time doing some tweeting today, or at least his staff did, talking about all of the Republicans who voted against the bipartisan infrastructure law, but yet took credit for it. And you got to love that. Well, I was against this little piece of it over here, but I'm going to take credit for everything else, but didn't vote for it. That always cracked me up. Always made me laugh that you're going to be against it, but you're for it. So you were for it before you were against it, or against it and for it. Confusing. Why you would then go out to the public and go, look at all the wonderful stuff I'm bringing back to my state. Look at the bridges and the roads and the whole things, all that stuff. But I didn't vote for it. And the interesting thing today, because our quote of the day comes from Texas Republican Representative Chip Roy, who I've always said is crazy. I have not been a huge Chip Roy fan over the years, but Chip evidently has been watching the show. And Chip, I think, kind of understands the reality of the world that we're in. So here's what Chip had to say. Just to get a thought here. Here's Chip.
I want my Republican colleagues to give me one thing, that I can go campaign on and say we did. One. Anybody sitting in the complex, if you want to come down to the floor and come explain to me one material, meaningful, significant thing the Republican majority has done, one thing.
So at the end of this, I come back to Republicans have almost nothing to run on in 2024. And as I said, the Biden folks, lot to run on, a lot to get through. And I think that is a good thing. Let's go to Steve in Chicago on line one. Steve, how are you today?
Yes, I'm fine. And I wanted to expand upon what you were talking about. I mean, it's absolutely true. Republicans have nothing to run on because they are the party of no. There's no vision. Usually a party needs some sort of a platform and a vision for how you move the country forward in terms of holding power. But no, they've just become the party of whatever the Democrats are for, we are against. Whatever progressive politics is for, we are against. Okay, I mean, I suppose that there are people who might support a political ideology that is against something, but you've also got to substitute something that you're for, because things don't run themselves. And then this is an old formula with regard to taking credit for the things that you oppose. I mean, we already have seen evidence of this. I mean, so the number of Republicans who are going to take credit for the infrastructure bill that they opposed in the upcoming 24 election cycle is going to be remarkable. So they'll be like, your state got X number of hundreds of millions of dollars and this and this and this, and billions. And, we've done these projects, and it's lowered unemployment, it's created jobs, it's created contracts, all of this sort of thing. We've done that for you. No, actually, you're part of the party that voted against it, actually wanted to reduce the infrastructure bill and was successful in doing so because we needed a much larger infrastructure bill to address the deficits with regard to what we haven't been spending on our infrastructure in decades. So it's just the irony of ironies. And then in terms of resolving temporarily at least the budget crisis, so that we don't go into the Thanksgiving holiday with places like the TSA and not being fully funded, and therefore people waiting in line for 4 hours to get on a flight. Yeah, they knew that they needed to have some sort of a short-term vote, some sort of a short-term plan. And the thing of it is that it's only through Democratic votes that was able to pass, that meant that select Republicans, were free to then vote against it once they knew that it would pass, so that you can go back home and say, well, you know what, I stood my ground against, the swamp and the deep state and everything else, and, I was one of the people who voted against it, knowing full well that if it came down to your vote, you would have voted for it, as opposed to voting against it. But you were free, to vote against it because you knew it was going to pass. I mean, people, they really don't understand. They don't do this for a living. So they just think that, okay, this was the vote and this is how people voted. No, there's a whole lot of political calculus that goes into this.
No, you're spot on right. And this is how we don't get the things that we need addressed. This kind of gamesmanship, this kind of political calculus, as you say. It's the reason that working people never get what we need out of our Congress.